Hello, and welcome to the Atlantic Ambition Spotlight interview series. I'm your host, Barrett MacDonald, joined today by Laura Leigh Gillis, owner of East Coast Realty. Laura Leigh, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to chat with us today. Would you like to get things kicked off with a little bit about who you are and what got you started on your entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Barrett. This is fun. So I'm Laura Leigh Gillis. I'm the owner of East Coast Realty, as you've mentioned, which means I'm a real estate agent. I've been in the real estate industry now for about 13 years, I guess. And I had been in sales most of my life, and I knew that I really wanted to get into real estate sales even many, many years before I did, because I felt that as a salesperson, you like to be service oriented and to help people. And I felt that the highest level that I could help people at was in real estate, helping them buy a home, helping them to satisfy that need for housing, and helping to find the perfect match based on location, what's going to work for their family, commute, as we've chatted about before. And so I decided to leave a career and take my real estate license. Took my real estate license by correspondence, which is studying evenings and weekends and not in a classroom at all, which was quite challenging. Wrote my exam, and then several months later, I decided to actually go in and register with a brokerage. Um, Came into the market when it was absolutely very quiet. It was a strong, what we've referred to as a strong buyer's market, meaning there was lots of homes available to sell, but not a lot of people actually looking to buy them. So I spent my time there digging in and going out and visiting homes when they were available to see what was selling and why it was selling. And then I incorporated what I learned from that into my own personal business so that I could really help sellers and really help buyers when I had them to make the right decisions. And then, as I did that for about 5 or 6 years, I decided to take the broker course, which was that next level of learning that was available to a real estate agent. And then I decided to open my own little company. I did that because I like to be independent. Um, I like to do things a certain way, and I like to have the flexibility to do things a certain way. I tend to be a bit of a workaholic. So I wanted the freedom to be able to work as hard as I wanted to when I wanted to, but also to have that ability to create some vacation time or downtime when I wanted that as well.
That's awesome. So, what would you say is one of the most common misconceptions about owning a business that you've come across, and what do you do to kind of combat that?
I think people often don't realize the behind the scenes things that happen in order to make a business look like it's running very smoothly, and that it's successful and it's doing well. But there's a lot of hard work and a lot of after hours time that is not visible to the average person, which is a good thing that it's not, in one way. But really, there is a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes to have this storefront, if you will, of what this business is. But you wear a lot of different hats, I like to call it, when you're an owner operator of a business. You got to be your marketing person. You got to be your, taking care of buying printers and paper and supplies when those things happen. You got to clean it. I got to sweep my own floors, and I got to vacuum and mop floors and things. So there's a lot of pieces of from other jobs and things that you as the owner kind of have to take on and be responsible for, because you're that front of the business, if you will. And then you got to do what you actually love to do, which is help people buy and sell homes.
Right. Absolutely, which is fun. It's definitely a fun industry, and as I get to know more about it, it sounds like those that can do it really enjoy it for the right reasons. So that's essential. So my hat's off to you. So now that you've got a business and you're responsible for staff, do you want to kind of touch on like how that feeling and what you've learned about being responsible for people's paychecks, and then what do you go about when you're looking at onboarding some realtors, and what's kind of your process there?
Yeah, very fascinating to, have that shift when you become a business owner. Because when you were real estate, just one on one, it's up to me. How much money I make really is up to me. If I want to make more, I can go out and work more. I can, work harder. If I want downtime, I could take that. But once you have a business and you have a couple of other people working with you, um, Yeah, it really changed things for me because it made me realize I've got to get out there because I'm responsible now to contribute to the success of two other people.
Right.
And and yeah, it was a really interesting mind shift for me because sometimes, I can let that sweeping of the floor, I'll use as just a quick example, go, because it didn't matter much to me if the floor was swept or if that ad was done. But now it does make a difference because it's not just me who is relying on East Coast Realty to have a good brand and a good name in order to attract business. There's two other people that work here that, they rely on that branding as well. And that branding can support their hard work and their efforts too.
Absolutely. So you've talked a lot about like having the flexibility within your schedule. How do you go about scheduling personal time and making sure that you have that balance and with the demands of running a business, a peaks and valleys business such as your own too?
Yeah, when I first started, I didn't have good boundaries set because it was, kind of all or nothing. I wanted to work very hard, try to get established, um, and really just working constantly, 16, 18-hour days trying to get the business up and running, buying supplies and desks and printers and all of those things. And then once you're up and running, then it's, how do you get that balance back in? So I've started to schedule my downtime. And it was one thing that I never used to do is because I didn't think it was important enough, Barrett, for me to take some personal time. I felt that all my energy needed to go into the business. But I
Right.
learned that if you're not looking after taking some downtime, then you don't have any energy to put into the business. And things that would take you normally, say, a day, when you don't have the energy, it would take you 2.5. So that wasn't the best use of my time. So once I started to realize that, I started to get very good at setting boundaries about when I can work, when I can't work, and taking time off and scheduling time for me and honoring that schedule. So if I put in that I wanted to go for a massage, for example, I would leave that in my calendar. I would block it a month ahead of time. And then if someone wanted to see me on that day, I'd say, no, sorry, I'm booked. They don't need to know that I'm booked with a massage, right?
Right.
They just need to know that I'm booked. And I found that that made a big difference. And now one of the things that from that, now I get my other two gals to do that for themselves as well. That I'm speaking to the importance of downtime and balance in the work life. Because certainly in the real estate career, we do, as you've mentioned, we have those peaks and valleys. We call it a run rest period. So I've learned to take advantage of the run and the rest. So certain times of the year, spring and fall, you tend to be busier in real estate. Okay. And you can see that just from driving down a street in May, there's more for sale signs than there would have been, say, for example, in February. So it's a
Right.
busier time of year very naturally. So we rest prior to that and we get our not our front facing things, but our stuff that's like our behind the scenes stuff done in those slower periods. So in January, for example, I'm going to be strategically thinking about what is coming up for this year and how can I, get some of my advertising or some of the things that I want to do in place in January, even though they might not be happening until April or May.
Right.
We've got to pre-plan that far ahead and even further ahead, really, in order to make sure that we get our rest in, but then we're really ready to run when we can hit the ground running when it is busiest. Because when it's, I say to the girls, there's all kinds of time to twiddle our thumbs in January. Not a lot of people want to move in January, but that's the right time to be focused on the back side of your business. And then your front side can be really out there when you're, in those busy times of April, May, and June, for example.
Absolutely makes total sense as I just take a coughing fit,
Yes, go ahead.
which makes it fun. So market aside in the real estate area, what do you attribute the growth of your company and brand versus some of the other companies and brands out there?
Yeah, so I've kept consistent with my branding and my logo, and I thought long and hard about my branding, the company name, my logo, as you can see behind me here. I put a lot of thought into that because I wanted something that was going to be memorable easy to recognize, and was East Coast, that matched with the name. And having that good brand will help carry me in the slower times, I find, because people, I show them my logo and they go, "Oh, I'm familiar with your company. I remember that." Um, so branding was certainly a big part of it. Sorry, what was the other part of your question? Now I forget.
And your growth, like what do you attribute your
Oh,
growth to?
the growth is by doing a good job. In our business, it's really about word of mouth referrals. So the branding is one piece that will help to attract clients, and it will help to reinforce what they have heard about you. But then growing it is doing what you say you're going to do when you're going to do it. It's that simple, really, for me. I'm going to sell your house for the most money that I can in the shortest amount of time possible. And here's the strategy that I'm going to do to get there. And then delivering on that. So when you do have that client, that you work hard and you work very focused on getting the best results for them. And then you get word of mouth advertising, which again will be reinforced by your brand.
Right, absolutely. Do you have a specific referral process that you try to use with your clients?
It's one of the things I'm really bad at, but that I'm looking to grow. Um, I don't like to, even though I have a great brand, I don't like to put myself out there and necessarily ask for referrals and ask people if they were satisfied with the job. And I learned it was because I was afraid, what if they said no? They weren't happy. Because I think I'm doing everything really well. If somebody said no, this could have been improved, then that means that I've got to do a little internal shift and try to figure that out. So I was not great at asking for referrals or testimonials in my business. Now that I have a couple of other people that I'm also responsible for, I recognize the value in getting that, and I'm working on, getting more testimonials and feedback so that I can grow. Because same
Right.
with a property, if I can't get feedback on the listing, I may not be able to give the advice to the sellers as to why it's not selling. Feedback is very beneficial in the course of listing a home because you can't react to what you don't know about. So if I get feedback on something I can't change, that's one thing. But if I put 10 people through the home and 6 of them come back and say we really didn't like the paint colors, well, guess what? You got to change. You're going to have to change the paint colors. So that
Right.
feedback becomes very, very crucial on how you can do things better and become more effective. And once I made that mental switch in my head, it was like, okay, and I do a good job. So what am I afraid of? Someone's going to say, that I didn't. I know that I did. And if I didn't, I do want them to tell me. So
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
looking at, yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. And when you think of it, 100% of the real estate transactions that happen in a year, you don't need 100% of them. You
No.
only want the percentage that you can handle. So when you stop going after everything, you can really niche down and be specific and good at what you do, and that will attract people that you want to work with. So it's a
And
good
that
way of
was,
having it.
yeah, and you just touched on something, that's one of the things too that shifted for me. Early on in my career, I wanted to work with everybody and anybody. Fully recognizing I didn't need 100% of the business out there. There's lots of opportunity for all kinds of agents with all kinds of styles. Um, but I did want to get the lion's share of what I felt was, a good client fit for me, but also to get to that point, which I am at now, that if you're not going to be a good fit for me, that I do have the luxury of being able to say, no, I'm not going to be that right fit
Right.
for you. I think you should go to another agent. And that's very individual, and it depends on the home, the location, the conditions of selling. Like there's so much that will factor into that decision. But I feel very empowered with some of the boundaries and things that I've set, that I could say, no, I'm not taking this listing.
Right.
Or yes, I do want to take this listing, or no, I don't want to work with that buyer, or yes, I do want to work with this buyer. So, and that's something that I'm able to help with the other two ladies, is like, let's look at this, because on my experience, in my experience, this is going to take this much time, this much effort. Here's what you're going to run into. Is it worth it in the end? Right.
Right.
is it going to be worth it in the end? And sometimes the answer is no, and you have to be strong enough to say, you know what, I'm not the right fit for you. And that's
Right.
okay. It's totally okay. I had to fire a client early in my career. Turned out to be one of the best things that I ever did. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was just sucking so much energy from me. I couldn't take any downtime because it was a very demanding situation. And really, I was much better served and had more energy for my other clients by letting that one client go.
Absolutely. It's something that I talk to other clients about is when they're trying to find more time and they're a service-based industry, it's let's go through the process of grading your clients. And sometimes those D clients are bringing you the least amount of revenue and taking up the most of your time. So there has to be that selection process. And it's unfortunate, but sometimes people don't make the cut. And it's a freeing experience to have where you say no to 10% of the people you're trying to do business with, and the other 90% are happier and you're making more money. So it makes it it's a business decision. That is
Yeah.
how you tactfully do it is what makes you unique, right? Which is
Yes.
really good. So my last kind of question here, Laura Leigh, as we're wrapping up is for anyone watching that's thinking about going into the world of business and becoming an entrepreneur, what's one piece of advice that you have for them?
I think the best piece of advice I could give to someone starting out in any industry is to hire the people right away that know how to do something better than you do. Recognize that you don't know how to do everything. And while there are some tasks that you're going to be okay at, that you're going to have to do as a business owner, there are going to be some that makes much more sense for you to hire an expert in that field, let them do the work, because just as you said, they're going to be quicker, they're going to be more efficient, they're going to make it a lot less work in the long run and a lot better outcome if you give that up. So I always try to hire people who are better at something than I am if it's not something that I'm good at or that I'm strong at all.
Absolutely fantastic piece of advice. So, Laura Leigh, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule today to have a conversation. And everyone watching at home, I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.
Thank you so much, Barrett.